Hey there, how there, ho, there's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to yet another Stone Cold Hockey video. And no, it has nothing to do with any tournaments whatsoever. It has to do with a 7 game series in which we are playing Stone Cold Hockey because it's the Alex Delvecchio tribute game. As I just heard that Alex Delvecchio, legendary player for the Detroit Red Wings, has passed away at 93 years old. Let's give some intel. As you can see, Alex Delvecchio, born December 4th, 1931, died July 1st, 2025. Greatest player around. He was a player, coach, and GM who spent his entire NHL career with the Detroit Red Wings. You don't see that every day, that a player spends a lot of time with just one team. He played from 1951 to 1973, over 1,500 games, and had over 1,280 points. He actually retired second in games played, assists, and points. Most of the records were, of course, one Gordie Howe had. Gordie Howe was number one. He won the Lady Byng 3 times for gentlemanly conduct and helped the Red Wings win 3 Stanley Cups, including the final time the Red Wings won the Cup for 42 years back in 1955. He was one of 3 NHL players to spend their entire career with one franchise and play over 1,500 games with that team. Steve Yzerman and Nick Lidstrom, also with the Red Wings, are doing that. Now, of course, Crosby and Ovechkin, they'll probably add on because, those two guys have been around for freaking years. He actually retired in 1973 and became head coach of the Red Wings and was GM in '74. For a few years, he was the coach and GM. He was the guy well, he was very respected. Part of the production. Was he part of the production line? I think he was. Yes, he was. He was part of the production line with Gordie Howe and Ted Lindsay. One of the greatest lines in NHL history. He was named one of the 100 greatest NHL players in all time in 2017 to celebrate the NHL centennial year. Delvecchio went to the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1977. He was the last surviving member of the Red Wings team cup winning teams of 52, 54, and 55. Amazing. So he played for Oshawa, and of course, this was at the time that the draft never happened, so he got to spend time. Detroit got him. Delvecchio got injured in 1957 for 22 games, but the last 16 years, he only missed 14 games, so less than a game per season. In fact, he's second most for number of games played in a career spent with only one team. Of course, OV and Crosby are catching up to that. But anyway, Nick Lidstrom has the mark. Delvecchio actually was never the Red Wings' leading point scorer because of Howe's presence. And after all, Gordie Howe did play from 1946 to 1971 with the Wings. Nevertheless, he had 2 stints as Detroit head coach as well as GM and traded away Marcel Dion to LA because Marcel Dion was being a bastard behind the scenes. He basically, yeah, he had everything going and all that. Died at age 93. Delvecchio's number 10 hangs from the Red Wings rafters. I mean, who were number 10? I think Jimmy Carson were number 10, and then Delvecchio had that mark once Carson moved on, I think. Now let's look at his Detroit numbers. Look at this: 456 goals, 825 assists, 1,281 points in 1,550 games as a Detroit Red Wing, with 104 points in 121 games in the playoffs. Third all time in games played in a Red Wings uniform, behind Lidstrom and Gordie Howe. Retired as the overall leader in games played in a career spent with one team. Gordie Howe played for Hartford in the NHL in 1980. Lidstrom passed him, but Delvecchio still has the most for forwards, obviously. 3 times Stanley Cup champ, 13 times in the All-Star game. Only 6 players has played more All-Star games than him. Second team All-Star, end of year All-Star in 1953 and 1959. Was captain for 12 years for the Red Wings. Only Yzerman spent more years as a Red Wings captain, more than him. He's 11th in games played in NHL history and 27 points scored. Not that bad. His number 10 was retired November 10th, 1991. I think Jimmy Carson was traded or something, wasn't he? Because Jimmy Carson changed his number. I think Carson wore number 12. Nevertheless, coaching, he was not really the best coach around and never got to the playoffs. So that's for sure. So we're doing 2 teams he played for with the Stone Cold Hockey universe: the 1965 team and the 1971 team, and all that. The 68 team is exempt because it's right in the middle, but I want to highlight how good Delvecchio was. I wish there was something about him in the 1950s, but Stone Cold Hockey doesn't have it. 65 is the oldest. So anyway, we're gonna autoplay the matchups with 71 Detroit and 65 Detroit until we get to a deciding game. 65 team won 5-1. They're the home team. Roy Edwards losing to Roger Crozier. The 65 Red Wings. You know, the next year the Red Wings would go to the Stanley Cup Finals and lose to Montreal. But anyway, the 71 team scored first, Ron Harris. But Detroit, Ullman, Murphy, Henderson, Ullman. Normie Ullman with the hat trick. No points by Delvecchio on either side. The 65 team wins 4-1. There's Jim Rutherford losing to Roger Crozier. 71 team Hart from Delvecchio. There's Delvecchio's name. And Gordie Howe. Detroit, Delvecchio scored a goal from Parker McDonald and Floyd Smith. And then he got, well, he didn't get any points. Ron Murphy, Gordie Howe, and Bruce McGregor for Detroit. Game 3 sees the 65 team win 2-1. Crozier over Edwards. Howe and Floyd Smith scoring the goals. For Detroit, Tom Webster for the 71 squad. No sign of Delvecchio anywhere. So anyway, we're going to play game 4. And it will be Jim Rutherford versus Roger Crozier. Carl Wetzel, the backup. Well, when I did the 64-65 replay, Wetzel didn't play one game, and then I let him have the final game of the season because, after all, he deserved at least one game. Yeah, Roy Edwards, Don McLeod, who later went into the WHA, and George Gray. Jerry Gray, what am I thinking? Anyway, Delvecchio is ranked 3rd in scoring things for both the 65 and 71 squad. He's only behind Normie Ullman and Gordie Howe for the 65 squad. Normie Ullman would do okay for the Leafs, being traded to the Leafs for Frank Mahovlich. Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe, retired in 1972, played in WHA, and found time to play with the Hartford Whalers in the 1980 season. Alex Delvecchio, production line. Bruce McGregor on that team. Ron Murphy, Floyd Smith, future Leafs coach and GM. Ted Lindsay, who came back after a 4-year retirement to Detroit after finishing his time with Chicago. And the production line was realigned. Parker McDonald, Eddie Joyal, because he's so loyal. Paul Henderson, yes, that Paul Henderson, played for the Detroit Red Wings in 65 before being traded to Leafs alongside Ullman for Frank Mahovlich. Pitt Martin, who found his way to Boston, and then they traded him to Chicago for the want of Phil Esposito. Doug Barkley, who would later become head coach and I think GM of the Red Wings. Gary Bergman played on the Summit Series team in 1972 for Canada. Larry Jeffrey, that's not how you spell my first name, my legal first name. It's E-R-Y. Val Fontaine was Mr. Clean, who barely took penalties in the NHL. Lowell McDonald. Marcel Pronovost, 2 years later, he played for the Leafs for the Stanley Cup. Al Langua, who was the GOAT, and not in a good way, when he gave up the puck that Bob Bond shot to score the overtime winner in Game 6 of the 64 finals, forcing Game 7 at Maple Leaf Gardens, and the Leafs won 4-0. Pete Gauguin, Bill Gadsby, still around, a legend. John McMillan, Andre Protofoe, Warren Godfrey, Bob Dillenbow. On the other side, the 71 squad, Tom Webster, who later became a head coach who got suspended for 12 games for throwing a hockey stick javelin style and hitting Mr. Kerry Fraser. And that was 2 years before Kerry Fraser made a massive boo-boo in the playoffs. Gordie Howe, Mr. Hockey, was that his last year? No, I think 72 was his last year, wasn't he? Anyway, never mind. Delvecchio, scoring links. Nick Libet there. Frank Mahovlich is scratched off because he didn't finish the season with the team. That's why I put it there. The big game was traded to Montreal to help them in the Stanley Cup run. Gary Unger was traded from Detroit, I think, to St. Louis. Yeah, he was traded to St. Louis because he would spend a lot of time in St. Louis. Yeah, Gary Unger. Wayne Connolly, I don't know who he was traded to, but yeah, he was former. Bruce McGregor was traded away. And Dale Rolfe was traded away. I think to the Rangers because Dale Rolfe. I think Bruce McGregor was a Ranger in 71. They made that deal or something. Because I've never seen the 71 Rangers and seen McGregor and Rolfe there. Okay. Nevertheless, Gary Bergman is on both teams. Rene Leclerc, Guy Charon, who was traded from Montreal to Detroit. Charon lasted 700 regular season games in the NHL. Never got a playoff berth. Never. I think that's a record. Mickey Redmond, was traded from the Habs to the Red Wings in the Frank Milovic deal, but he was famous in Detroit, did well scoring wise, and a famous color commentator for the Red Wings. Billy D, Bill Collins. Yeah, Bill Collins was traded from the Habs to the Red Wings. Brad Berenson was on that team. Ended up wearing his welcome in St. Louis too much. Tim Ecclestone, former Blue as well. Mike Robitaille, Hank Monteith, Don Luce, Kitchener. Look it up. Don Luce was a former Kitchener Ranger, and he became a member of the Sabres in the 70s. Ron Harris, one of the two guys who accidentally killed Bill Masterton. Jerry Hart, future Islanders guy. Arnie Brown, future Ranger. Tom Miller, and Al Carlander. Here we go. 5 minutes into the game. Blue for the 65 team. Jet skiers. Terrible Ted Lindsay finally breaks it. His duck from Gordie Howe and Floyd Smith. 1-0 for the 65ers. 3 minutes later, a battle control defense. 71 on the attack. Rene Leclerc. No. 4 minutes later. Action by the 65 team. They scored. Normie Ullman. Too bad you're not as smart as you thought they were in the first place. Oh, that's the theme song to Norm. I could have just said, cheers, Norm. Well, his fourth from Parker McDonald and Ronnie Murphy. 2-0. 3 minutes later. They can score 3. They do. Ted Lindsay, his second of the night from Barkley and McGregor. 3-0. He's not really playing with Delvecchio and Howe, but who cares? 2 minutes later. And Howe gets hit. And the 65 team looks like they're winning 3-0. I know it's a little unfair because we know the 71 Red Wings in real life sucked terribly. 22 wins. They were even worse than the 2 expansion teams that came into the league in 70-71, Buffalo and Vancouver. And speaking of that, it's like they played in the East Division. Speaking of that, why was Vancouver playing in the East? They should be playing in the West. Put a team like Pittsburgh or Philadelphia and put them in the East. I don't know why. 5 minutes later. Aggression. 71 Bergman. 71 Bergman will go off for 2 minutes. Chance to do something. Gordy can't do anything. Now they can Henderson. 6 minutes later. My name is Billy D, and I'm full of pee. I don't know how the song goes because of the Grease song. Billy D, his first from Gordie Howe. 3-1. 2 minutes later. Agitated. Chance for bicycle skiers. McGregor, his second from Ullman and Parker, makes it 4-1 Detroit. The 65 squad looks good. 3 minutes later, battle in forces. They go over hit, and now they're at 4-1. It looks like the 65 squad's going to win. And as I said, I know. I'm putting emphasis on, I put the 71 team and it should have been the 68 team. But, I mean, it's a 6-year gap. I'm going to give Jerry Gray the third period. I mean, it's 4-1. It's good! Mr. Hockey. First of the series for the 71 team, Hart and Webster. I think they've only scored 1 goal in the last 3 games. I could actually do that. Yeah, they've only scored 3 goals combined. Now they've scored 2. 4 minutes later. Chance for the 65 score. Hey, everybody. Norm. Well, his second of the night from Howe and Joyle makes it 5-2. 3 minutes later. Mr. Hockey again from Delvecchio and Hart makes it 5-3. There's a Delvecchio point for the 71 squad. 2 minutes later. Jet skiers. Henderson has scored for Canada. No cutter. Henderson has scored for Detroit. The second of the series from Ullman and Delvecchio. There's an assist from Delvecchio. Where the heck have you been for the 65 squad? 6-3. 5 minutes later. Jet skiers. Mr. Hockey scores for the 65ers. His third from Delvecchio. Another assist. Good job by Delvecchio. 2 assists for the team. And Normie Ullman with another assist. Is this game over? No, it's not. And Eddie Joyle scores. He's so loyal because he's Eddie Joyle. His first from Parker McDonald. 8-3. And Jerry Gray could not do the job. I thought this would be some kind of movement, but nope. It's not. Final score, 8-3. Crozier beats Rutherford. For the 65ers, Lindsay, Ullman, Lindsay, McGregor, Ullman, Henderson, Haller, Joyle. Delvecchio with a pair of assists for the 65 squad. Delvecchio with an assist for the 71 squad. The 71 squad, 3 goals by Day, Howe, and Howe. The 71 Red Wings only scored 3 goals in the first 3 games. Well, they weren't shut out, and they scored 3 goals this game. So the 65 Red Wings outscore their opponents 19-6. So that's about almost 5 per game to 1.5. So 19-6. So the 65 squad, Delvecchio had 3 points, 1 goal, 2 assists, far behind Ullman, Gordie Howe, even Floyd Smith. And he had no penalty minutes. I'm surprised. The 71 squad, Roy Edwards and Jim Rutherford both couldn't do anything, and Jerry Gray gave up 4 goals in 1 period. Delvecchio, 2 points. His first 2 points. Only Gordie Howe and Jerry Hart had more points than him. Jerry freaking Hart? Real skis. Delvecchio had 1 penalty, and that was it. So the 65 squad wins. I know it was a little fast and all that, but there's no other major hockey game to basically have like how big Delvecchio was. Maybe NHL 23 or something like that. I could have done something like that for Delvecchio, but thumbs the breaks. But anyway, yeah, the 65 squad won. In fact, the 65 Red Wings are in the 16 season tournament champions. All that I have taped the 65 the tournament champions. How did the 65 Wings do? I'm not telling you. You'll have to find out by watching the series. But that will be coming up in a few days, I think, because I still have to finish up the one or upload the one tournament of postseason tournament that I haven't done. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond, and rest in peace, Alex Delvecchio. Adieu.